After the recent Tombs of Amascut video that I got my Tumeken shadow in, a lot of people were asking me to make a guide on how I complete my raids. 400 Invocation is a great raid level that keeps the raid relatively easy while also having a very good chance at purples. So today, I will be going over a example run while discussing loads of helpful tips and tricks that will help you complete the raid. This isn't a noob-friendly guide by any means. This is for people who already have experience doing expert mode ToA that are also looking to push the raid level higher, or in general just be more efficient in their raids. The video will be split up into different chapters, so if you are looking for anything in particular, feel free to click below in the timeline and skip to whatever you are looking for. If I'm going too fast or you just want the entire run in one video, there will be an unlisted, unedited video of the whole raid in the description. I won't be going over gear setups because it is entirely personal preference. In most cases, your combat stats are actually more important than gear upgrades. The only thing that I will say is that the YOLO Keras is extremely overpowered and it will definitely help you in the high raid levels, but it is not required by any means. I use it for a good bit of my runs, but it can be done without it. In case you're wondering, here is the setup that I've used for over 200 raids. I don't use a Blood Fury here because upkeeping them on an Iron Man is just annoying, but it is very good and I would highly recommend it. You can get away with substituting my mage gear with Arms or the new Blue Moon armor, but I wouldn't go any lower than that. Overall, this is a pretty standard setup and it should serve as a pretty good baseline on what kind of gear you should be bringing in. Bowfa, Trident, and the Fang will get you through the raid just fine. Thralls are also very good. I do have a shadow, but for the sake of the video, I decided to not use it to prove that you don't need any mega rares to complete these. Before we head in, we need to talk about defense reduction. In 400 Invocation raids, the bosses are very tanky and defense reduction is very important. The Bandos Godsword or the Bone Dagger can be used to reduce their defense levels by a flat amount, which does save a good amount of time each raid. The Bone Dagger hits a lot lower, but it is a guaranteed hit on the first attack, so it might be worth considering. Zebak, Kephri, and Baba can have their defense reduced by up to 20 levels, but it cannot go any higher than that. Akkha can get reduced by 10, but it's not worth it because it gets reset every time he switches attack styles or does a special attack. As for Kephri, it works through the entire time the shield is up, but for the last phase when it's down to the final health bar, the defense reduction no longer works, but it still is worth specing him. The Bone Dagger is weird at Kephri, and it only works if the boss gets hit by something else first, so you need to spec on the second instance of damage. For Wardens, the Obelisk can be lowered up to 40 defense, Phase 3 Wardens by 30 defense, and the Enraged Phase Warden by 60 defense. So the TLDR for this whole segment is to use defense lowering weapons for every boss besides Akkha and P2 Wardens. This is my entire Invocation setup, which brings the raid level up to 405. In my opinion, this is one of the easiest setups for this. None of these invocations really aren't too bad once you learn how to deal with them. Once you are more comfortable with the raid, you can throw things on like Double Trouble or Dehydration for some more unique chance. I usually have Walk for it turned on, but sometimes I need to do things during the raid that makes me feel the completion time within the time limit, so it's only worth running if you're certain a 40-minute completion is no problem. Insanity can be scary, but with experience in skull skipping, it becomes a free 50 points. Also, do not use Overly Draining. It is such a bad invocation. Not being able to spam special attacks with a Light Barrier or Liquid Adrenaline makes the raid much more tedious and punishing. Only use this invocation if you're doing 500s or anything above that. Same goes to Pathfinder and Pathmaster. Those invocations make the raid take way too long, especially if you don't have max gear like myself. Alright, we all know the Monkey Room sucks, but it just got recently blogged that if you hit a monkey with the correct combat style, you would actually roll a max hit. Not sure if or when this will actually be in the game, so for now we have to suffer through it the normal way. I do Baba first just to get this room out of the way, so I do a full pre-pot with an anglerfish. The anti-venom should last you through Kephri, so you won't get poisoned in there. The waves of this room are the exact same every single time. It's just that the baboons have different spawn locations. With the ToA plugin, there's a path of Apmaken Helper that shows the spawns for each wave, giving you an idea of what gear you should be ready to switch to. Once you do the room enough times, it becomes muscle memory in a way. I use the Bowfa for the Shamans, Cursed Baboons, and the Majors. I use the Salad Blade for the Thralls and the Rangers, and I use the Trident for the Meleers. You can use Blood Barrage for this room to make it easier for yourself, but in the long run, you really should learn to do it without Ancients, because Thralls are way too good to pass up on. They are also pretty good for this room as well, since it can help you with licensing the Baboons. Mains can bring in 20 or so Black Shins instead, which works well too. The Blowpipe is also pretty good for this room, but I barely use it. My biggest advice for this room is to keep your switches consistent and try to use every volatile baboon to your advantage. If you follow both of these instructions, the monkey room really isn't all that bad. Figuring out solves for the waves using the volatiles efficiently makes the room somewhat fun. Here I bombed both of the Rangers, I damaged the Cursed Baboon while dragging the volatile towards the Shaman, and then I bombed the Shaman while killing the Majors. With quick thinking and constant DPS uptime, you should be able to easily complete this room. Also, always make sure to pay attention to what Apmaken site tells you to do. If you fail vents or pillars, it does nearly 40 damage, so you don't want to do that. If things go south, kill the Baboon Thralls with the YOLO Keras to get some HP back, or even Keras spec if you need to. If you have it, always utilize the YOLO Keras. High Invocation Baba is very annoying. especially since I don't Red X. She can hit over 20 damage through Protect Melee. For this reason, I usually only BGS spec it once regardless if it hits or not. That way I'll have enough special attack energy to use the yellow Karis spec if I need it. If you can be bothered, I would 100% learn the Red X method because it makes the room completely safe and you basically use 0 supplies for prayer flick. I got my Fang kit without doing it, so it really isn't necessary, but it does help a lot. As far as the actual fight, always hug the sides to prevent mind the gap deaths. Also make sure you are always near a rock or a sarcophagus for the rock fall special attack. When the baboons spawn, try to deal with them as quickly as possible. It's fine if one sarcophagus gets open, but things get out of hand very quick if more than 2 or 3 are opened. I like to use the yellow Karis to kill the baboons she spawns. It's a nice way to get some HP back from all the chip damage Baba does. Keep your prayer high just in case you need to do a Karis spec. At 66 and 33% health, Baba will do her boulder special. If you hug the bottom of the room, you actually get a few extra game takes to boulder skip. With only a Bowfa switch, you can one-shot the boulders easily and deal with the special attack without being range potted or even praying Urger. Towards the end of the kill, I like to dump Fang or Claw Specs because it usually hits pretty well and secures the kill. Overall, Baba isn't that bad, you just need to be a little careful. For the Kephri puzzle room, just use the ToA plugin and every puzzle becomes super easy. I always avoid the puzzle with the pillars because it's just too random and it deals unnecessary damage. There really isn't a whole lot to discuss here. With tick perfect movement, you can finish the room in around 50 seconds. Kephri is a pretty easy boss, but still shouldn't be underestimated. Always start the kill with the BGS spec, and be ready to set up the trap for the ranger. The orange tiles with the numbers on them tells you where to stand for the dung attack. The 3 is for the melee trap as well, but I don't use it because the Trident is pretty bad against the melee minion at this invocation. When the eggs spawn, use the yellow Karis on them to overheal a little bit. For the first set of overlords, have some dung placed at the first orange tile. That will force the melee minion to walk all the way around Kephri, which usually gives you enough time to kill the ranger before it actually reaches you. I completely ignore the swarms and let Kephri heal to full each time, which probably isn't ideal, but that's just how I do it. As you kill the melee minion, slowly make your way to the east side of the boss where the 2 is. Keep damaging Kephri until there is another dung attack. Be careful not to trap yourself, by the way, because it can happen. With these 2 dung walls, the ranger gets completely trapped for the next phase of overlords. When the minions spawn, quickly run to the green tile. This will drag the ranger into the trap and make him completely stuck. Then you can easily deal with the rest of the minions with no problem. Try to kill the major as soon as possible because at this invocation, the mage attack does a crazy amount of damage. When the melee and mage minions are dead, the ranger cannot hit you if you are on the west side of Kephri, meaning that you can entirely skip him. I sort of screwed up my dung placement in this example towards the end, but thankfully it didn't really matter. The biggest thing for this room is preserving your run energy as much as possible and avoid getting trapped. Once Kephri is dead, I always take power first and deposit my Divine Super Combat to save some space. Occasionally, you may only get one salt, but it's not a big deal. The Zebak puzzle room should take you about 32 seconds each time if done tech perfectly. Make sure you drop something if you need to, and make room for the jug without wasting time. Grab the jug, run to the marked tile, and left click use the jug on the waterfalls. The second your character fills up the jug, left click use the jug on the tree, and repeat the cycle. For the second jug filling, there is no tiles to click on, so you can just immediately click on the waterfall the tick you see your character water the tree. It might take some practice to get this down, but once you learn how to do it, it is very easy. You might get hit on the first jug filling, but this method is pretty idiot proof and it guarantees a perfect Crondis basically every time. Start every Zebak with BGS specs. Make sure you crush your salt beforehand. Zebak is also a pretty easy room, but upset stomach can be pretty scary sometimes. I used to do Zebak first because I hated dying to bad jug spawns with upset stomach, but this was entirely a skill issue. With the right positioning, you should almost never die to unlucky jug spawns. For the first set of jugs, stand towards the top left of the room, and there will be an easy solve almost always. If you mess up, you can actually tank the whole Zebak roar attack with the Karis spec if you use it the right time, though I wouldn't recommend relying on that because it wastes a lot of restores, and typically you need around 3 restores for Akkha to be safe. I have the jug set to shift click hit, so during the wave attack, I can shoot the jugs easily and then I have a lot more room to work with. If you get a leveled up Zebak and the wave opening spawns are too far apart, you can always resort to wave skipping if you know how to do it. For the second set of jugs, stand in the middle and you will typically get another easy solve. You can completely ignore the blood spawns by standing at the very edge on the raft. By the time it reaches you, it goes away and it won't do any damage. I sometimes go for claw specs towards the end of the kill, but it is dangerous because he can damn near one-shot you with his melee attacks. Zebak is overall pretty chill and the Bowfa does very well against him, especially if the BGS lands. The ToA plugin a while ago was updated and it tells you every solution for the light pillar puzzle. Just turn your brain off and let the plugin do the work. Place and rotate the mirrors in the red squares until the red is gone. Same thing applies to the walls. If it's marked red, mine it down. At 82 mining with the Dragon Pickaxe special attack, you can one down the puzzle with tick perfect timing. 85 mining or higher will one down without the special attack. The Ruined Pickaxe can one down, but it is entirely RNG based and it might not work most of the time. I screwed up the 1 down timing in this run, so I recorded another example. Basically, all you do is stand 2 tiles away from the pillar. Then, take the circle and the statue turns green, click on the pillar. It might take some practice, but 1 downing this puzzle is important to make time if walk for it is turned on. Akkha is probably the most difficult part of the raid. The fight itself takes a while and nearly full attention is required. I start the fight kiting around Akkha with the Trident. You can butterfly him, but 5-ticking the Trident is not a good idea. It already does pretty poorly at this invocation, and getting him to switch attack styles is what you want. If you only got 1 salt, don't use the last dose. Just camp reserve when it wears off and avoid drinking brew so you don't drain your stats. When the first set of shadows spawn, I stopped kiting and switched to the Bowfa. I'm pretty sure the blowpipe does better DPS against the shadows, but I've always used the Bowfa on them. Not messing up the memory special is crucial. If you mess it up, you will most likely die. I had a level 4 Akkha in this run, so there is 6 attacks to memorize. With feeling special turned on, you only have a few game ticks to deal with each attack, so make sure you're fully focused. Whenever I get around 20 HP or so, I care spec to get back to full HP. Getting the most value out of care specking during this part is very important, especially if you're slacking on supplies. Sometimes you'll get the chance to deal with the memory attack while the shadows are out. DPSing the shadows during this part is nice and it saves some time, but don't do it if it's going to distract you from remembering the memory pattern. It's very easy to die that way. Once he turns to his range phase, I usually throw 1 or 2 Fang specs depending on how much HP I have at the time. Typically you always want to camp in a special attack energy for the Kephri spec, but Akkha really doesn't have that high of kill potential as long as you do the fight correctly. The Bowfa and the Fang perform very well here, but with Stay Vigilant turned on, Akkha's attack style switches feel very random. Sometimes you're going to be stuck maging him for 80% of the fight, and other times he will switch attack styles every few auto attacks. Just be ready to switch a lot if Akkha decides to be annoying. Shadow skipping is a very important tactic that should be utilized at this invocation always. I never failed the DPS check in my example run, but it does happen sometimes and I showed it in a different raid. All you need to do is stand at any of the tiles marked Shadow Skip, and the tick you see Akkha's spear turn blue, click on the tile adjacent of the Shadow Skip tile and you will completely avoid the DPS check. I highly recommend going into this room and practicing this because it makes the room much easier. As I nearly kill him, I do another Kephri spec and get ready for the last phase. I personally always try to start the Enrage phase or the Come phase or whatever you want to call it at full HP. Throw on Piety, summon a Thrall, and pray for big hits. This is without a doubt one of the hardest parts of the raid. My biggest advice is to play it slow if you need to and do not panic. Sip your adrenaline and spam the Kephri specs if you need to, or drink brews. This is the only part of the raid that I use the brew that I bring in, just in case of emergencies. If you don't need the Kephri, Dragon Claws do very well here. Akkha definitely takes the longest, it requires the most amount of effort out of all the bosses before Wardens, but it does make for a fun fight in my opinion. Once you defeat Akkha, take life from the ghost and get ready for Wardens. If you know what you are doing, Wardens really isn't that bad. Start every obelisk phase with an adrenaline dose. If you adrenaline during the last phase of Akkha, it will most likely still be active. BGS spec the obelisk until 40 defense is reduced. If you hit that and still have special attacks remaining, claw spec the rest of your energy. Make sure you tank some orbs on the east side of the obelisk. You don't want the Warden spawning Akkha and Kephri later on, especially with aerial assault turned on. Once you tank some orbs and dump your specs, head to the outer edge of the area and Bowfa down the rest of the obelisk. When you stand here, none of the UFOs can reach you. For the first set of charged shots, I just heal through it using brews, and then after that, you should have enough special attack energy to Kephri spec the next set of them. Usually it takes around 2 or 3 sets of charged shots before killing the obelisk. If you get really unlucky hits, you can always Ambrosia. E2 Wardens can be somewhat tricky, but keeping him in place the whole time and utilizing the 2 marked tiles makes the fight relatively easy in my opinion. Just pray accordingly and deal with the special attacks. The lightning skulls are probably the most threatening part of this phase, but standing a tile or 2 away from where the skull lands will completely dodge it. Don't stand diagonally of it, otherwise you will get hit and likely get comboed out since it turns your prayer off. And that goes for all special attacks. The beam attack can be easily dealt with by simply moving over it when it passes the marked tile. 3 downing the Warden is ideal. Anything more than that does not give any more points, so it's a complete waste of time. Make sure you don't brew yourself down before the core spawns. Also be quick with your switches. You don't get that much time. Other than that, just smack away with the Salad Blade and use the BGS on the last swing each time. This will guarantee a 3 down. You get 6 hits for the first down, 8 hits for the second down, and then 10 hits for the third down. The windmill special is dealt basically the same as the beams. Just wait until it passes the marked tile and run straight over it. The Trident is pretty bad here, so be ready to deal with a lot of specials in the Warden attack since you need to use it for 2 out of the 3 cycles. After the third down, you should be able to kill the core and move on to the next phase. Stay in your melee gear and BGS the Warden until 30 defense is reduced, and then once again claw spec if you have remaining energy. Towards the start of this fight, nothing much is really going on. All you do is walk right, left, and then middle at a fast pace. Upkeeping your thrall the whole time is especially good here. This might seem scary if you don't have any experience doing Insanity, but trust me, it's not that bad. Especially since we won't be getting one-shot by the skulls. The marked tiles on the edges of this room are used for skull skipping. When the skulls spawn, all you need to do is stand on one of these tiles and spam click one of the skulls that spawn with a ranged weapon. This will make your character run over the explosion and you take 0 damage. However, the boss does not take any damage from the skulls, so the fight takes a little bit longer. Doing this grants you more points since the damage from the skulls does not count towards the unique chance. With Insanity turned on, you need to know which side the Warden last attacked since his attack pattern does not reset. I simply stand towards the back of the room and react to the boss. If he slams middle, stay in the middle. If he slams left, go right. If he slams right, go left. Once you progress the fight, Zebak will spawn in the second set of skulls. Simply pray whatever Zebak attacks you with and once again spam click the skulls from the outer tiles. Make sure you click on the skulls that aren't right next to you. Otherwise you will fail the skull skip and instantly die. If you aren't full HP before the skulls, you can use the yellow Kephri and hit a skull or two to get some HP back while still being able to skull skip. For the third set of skulls, Bowfa will spawn and you will need a little bit of timing to avoid the falling boulders. Wait for the boulder to fall, move away and spam click the skull yet again. Standing in place and tanking the boulder is not recommended, since it deals a lot of damage. For the final set of skulls, you're going to need to dodge 1 or 2 boulders depending on where Bowfa is in the cycle when the skulls spawn. It's a little tricky sometimes, but if you need to, just tank a boulder. It's not worth messing up the skull skip. Before starting the final phase, have your Ambrosias ready as well as your liquid adrenaline. Also make sure you are full HP. Right before the enrage phase begins, I sip the adrenaline pot and do another mix of BGS and claw specs. Up to 60 defense can be reduced here, which helps the Bowfa out massively. For this part, keep focusing on Zebak's attacks and Bowfa's boulders. The lightning does not do that much damage, so it's okay to get by that here and there. Make sure you are always moving after every hit, and always keep your thralls active. At this invocation, you typically will have to do some front row running. If you move the tick before the lightning strikes, you won't take any damage. The only way to get better at this is experience. Pretty much everything is avoidable unless you get some ridiculous lightning spawns. The adrenaline lasts for a good amount of time, so the Kephri can be used here if you're struggling. In this example, I didn't need to use a single ambrosia dose or the Kephri the entire time. Once you get enough KC under your belt, Wardens becomes a cakewalk. Unfortunately, it was a white light, but the beauty of these 400 invocation raids is that if I did 9 more of these, I would have hit the drop rate of a purple. Dry streaks may still happen, but it is much more common to get a purple here than it is at Chambers of Xeric or Theater of Blood. These ToA raids really aren't that difficult, even with scuffed Iron Man gear. If I can complete these 400 invocation raids, and so can you, I am by no means good at this game. I don't have a quiver, I don't have an infernal cape, I just play the game a lot. As you can see, my shadow is just chilling in the bank. Doing ToA at this invocation is how I got it. Maybe if you're lucky, you can get one too. Hopefully this guide helped you in any way. If you have any questions, feel free to drop a comment and I will answer it. Let me know if I should make more guides in the future. Leave a like if you liked the video, and drop a sub if you learned anything. Thanks for watching and I'll see you next time.